You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button.
When Brian Kelly met with reporters on Wednesday, he did discuss a lot of roster and staff shakeup. And one of the things that I am most interested in as they move toward this offseason, through the offseason, meaning spring football, which is about a month away in the beginning of March, and then ultimately that spring portal window, which will follow, is are you going to add to this portal class? Well, first, this was Brian Kelly kind of giving an overview of the transfer portal class, which ranked the #1 portal class in the country.
We had 16 total transfers come in, 8 on offense, 7 on defense, and 1 special teams player. And we're pretty excited about that. They give us a experienced group that has played high-level football and blends to the existing program that we have. So from that perspective, combined with 3 straight top 10 high school signing classes, we wanted now to enter into adding to that roster. And I think we addressed it, and we believe that this group now is such that we can compete for a championship.
That was the objective when they went into this portal class. It was understanding you had the resources, some of it circumstantial. Obviously, Bryce Underwood, Jakeem Stewart, Cade Phillips not being a part of this class, which freed up monies. Other was planning accordingly. But for whatever the reason, it is how it laid out that LSU built this class. My big question remaining, though, is as you go into the spring portal cycle, are there positions they're targeting in the same way? Remember, a year ago, when they finished spring football, Brian Kelly did not mince words. There were 2 positions they had to address. He said defensive tackle was a must. They had to add a defensive tackle. And they were back against the wall in that situation, and all they ended up with was JVR Suggs, who was a good player, but he was really just an interior pass rusher. And then punter. Remember, coming out of the spring game, Brian Kelly said, very disappointing that Peyton Todd didn't really put a stranglehold on that job. They ended up adding Blake Oxendorf, and both were pretty inconsistent this year. So going into last year's portal cycle, you knew you were looking for those 2. Here was BK about this year's spring portal window.
I think we go into this next portal window with no expectations of we need to get somebody out of the spring portal. It would have to be something that just was a right fit for us. So we don't go into the second portal with any expectations like we had going into the December portal.
I would say there is, if not a must or expectation as Brian Kelly said it, I think there is one position that is very obvious that you're kind of hopeful that you end up having an impact player enter, and it would be the spot that you'd add someone, and it would be at offensive tackle. Now, you have, I think you have a very workable and potentially really good offensive line, if I were to spell it out this way. You added Braylon Moore at center. Josh Thompson comes in from Northwestern. He could play right guard. DJ Chester, who started every game for you this year at center, could kick to his natural position and play left guard for you, and that leaves your tackles. And I could lay out a scenario where Tyree Adams is your left tackle, and then you have a competition at right tackle with Weston Davis or Bo Bordelon or any number of players that might have an opportunity to win that job. But I could make a workable offensive line for you there with those guys. But if you have the opportunity to improve, you're absolutely looking for it. By the way, Brian Kelly did talk about the offensive line competition in spring football being something he was keeping an eye on.
We can start with, in the portal, Braylon Moore and Josh Thompson will be 2 that will be part of that mix in the spring. But it's important to point out that, there's going to be great competition. And you saw that in the bowl game, how really if you look across the board, Miles Frazier is the only player that does not return in that unit. So all of those guys will get the opportunity to compete, plus the two that I've mentioned that were starters both at Virginia Tech and Northwestern. We think that makes for a very competitive spring.
So I look at the guys that are on that offensive line in their positions. I could also make a case for Josh Thompson, the Northwestern transfer, who as a junior played tackle, then as a senior this past year played guard, kicked inside. He could play tackle. If you get up against it, I could see a scenario where it's Braylon Moore at center. It is DJ Chester and Paul Mabenga at guard, and then Josh Thompson and Tyree Adams at tackle. Point is, you're not going to answer those questions definitively in spring, but you're going to give yourself a better idea of what the answer will be once you get to fall camp. If you can add a tackle, awesome. I mean, and maybe it's a thing where there's a guy that's a Power 5 starter that goes in the portal and it's a huge opportunity. Great. More than likely, it would be a depth piece or a lower level classification guy who's maybe looking to take a step up, like Miles Frazier did when he was at FIU and then transferred to LSU. We saw Liam Shanahan do this a couple of years ago when he came from Harvard to LSU. Now, Shanahan started for a couple of seasons kind of out of necessity, but wasn't great for LSU as a starter. I guess the point is, if you can add some experienced depth who can compete, great. But if not, I think you're good where you are. I kind of agree with Brian Kelly and where he is. And one more, by the way, Brian Kelly was also asked about which transfer players so far are standing. Remember, they haven't hit the practice field yet, but weight room, film, all that sort of stuff. Which transfer players are standing out?
Experience at the tight end position to marry with a really exceptionally young player in Trey'Dez, but bringing in Bauer Sharp, who's got a lot of experience and, a veteran kind of presence there at the tight end position. He's been outstanding. I think Jack Pyburn brings more than just his ability on the field, but how he impacts everybody in the locker room and in the weight room. His demeanor, his attitude is infectious. I think those two guys. And I'd say, Mansour Delant has been very, very, I think, impactful at the cornerback position. We've got some younger guys, some guys with experience, but we don't have a veteran player back there. And his leadership and just the way he's handled himself has been outstanding.
So just a quick note on each of those. Of course, look, Bauer Sharp, with Sharp and Pyburn, all three really, but Sharp and Pyburn, you're talking about veteran players who are established players who it can be argued they were just looking for a check. Right, from where they were, they went into the portal, one more year, get paid, and they did, and good for them for that. But when Brian Kelly is calling those guys out as guys that have been impactful so far and impressive, that's awesome to hear, because while, yes, they were able to capitalize on an NIL deal, those are guys that have a massive opportunity for the NFL. If they use this year in this system, again, Bauer Sharp coming into an offense that features the tight end, he could become potentially a day one pick. Jack Pyburn, a guy that's been a very good edge rushing run stuffer, right, or edge run stuffer, right, over 60 tackles last year at Florida, told us on this show he wants to go from being an effective pass rusher to an elite pass rusher. Okay, well, Kevin Peoples, Blake Baker, very aggressive scheme, looking to increase there. That makes a lot of sense. And then it was also interesting hearing Brian Kelly talk about Mansour Delane there to say, you've got talent, but that's an experienced guy where they lack experience on the back end. You're kind of talking about safety there because you've got Ashton Stamps back at corner. You're bringing in Jakeem Jackson, who is kind of a veteran player there. Yes, DJ Pickett's young, and Mansour Delane may end up playing corner, but safety is really where you're young. You got Jordan Gilbert back. You bring in Tamarcus Cooley, who's just finished his redshirt freshman year, but after that, it's all young guys. So anyway, file it away. I don't know which position to play, but I'll remind you that last year in spring, Sage Ryan played primarily safety in spring. In fall camp, he was playing corner, started the opener at corner, then went back to safety. I could see them trying to figure where Mansour Delane fits best in this defense and using spring to be sort of a springboard for that. Just something to watch as we get closer to and move through spring starting in March.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.